Thank you to NordLocker for sponsoring a portion of this video.
It's already been a big day, but we do have one more thing. This is a day that's been years in the making, one that I've really been looking forward to. So I'm thrilled to introduce Disney.
So during the Vision Pro announcement at WWDC, there was like a lot to unpack there. And there wasn't really the killer app that was shown. I think the reason that everybody's gonna get excited about the headset just yet. It's probably why they're announcing it, months in advance. But if there was going to be something killer that got shown, unlike this thing on my eye that refuses to go away, it was definitely Disney. When returning CEO Bob Iger came on and showed, I think, some pretty awesome use cases here. I'm not just saying this as a sports fan, but looking at that NBA demo where you could see the replay happen, you can move it around. I'm imagining being able to sit, center court or watch a football game at the 50-yard line, or like they showed, watch The Mandalorian on Tatooine. It looked epic and it looked awesome. And it looked so good that people started talking. What if Apple bought Disney? That headline sounds like ridiculous, but as most things, I have insomnia and I spent a lot of time digging through, could that actually happen? And then what would it look like? And I like to share that version of a world in a multiverse where Apple buys Disney. So money's got to change hand, right? Apple's got about $200 billion cash on hand. Obviously they wouldn't buy Disney just for cash, but it would probably cost them about $260 to $280 billion. And just for some size comparisons about how big and a behemoth Apple actually is, they're the largest technology company in the world just based on revenue. 2022, for example, they had over $394 billion in revenue. And earlier this year, they had a market cap of around $2.6 trillion. That's a lot of money. And you think Disney's pretty big too, but they are a tiny little peanut compared to Apple. Disney is the 55th largest market cap, and this is as of March 2023, and they have a measly value, and I'm sorry for them. It's sad to even say they're struggling at $182.56 billion. So, hypothetical world, assuming there was some stock here or Apple took on some debt, obviously it would decimate their balance sheet. But they'd be getting Disney, which obviously has a ton of IP here. Apple's pushing their streaming service. Disney owns everything in the streaming world. It makes a little bit of sense if you think about it. And it's not even some pipe dream either. Bob Iger himself envisioned what this joint venture could look like just a few years ago in 2019. This is a quote from him. "I believe that if Steve were still alive, we would have combined our companies, or at least discussed the possibility very seriously." So, something that was obviously talked about or thought, and there's some precedent there too. Disney essentially bought Pixar from Steve Jobs. So they've worked together in the past. So how would this work, right? Theoretically, this could help future-proof Apple, right? It would reduce their dependence on the business model of iPhone sales. And that accounts for about 60% of all Apple's income and revenue. And with more things coming out, headsets coming out, and people eventually going to moving away from having a phone in your hand, you could argue Apple's going to where the money is, and the money is going to be in content. Apple could compete with the behemoths, compete with Netflix and Amazon, and arguably it would be way bigger and compete way better than Netflix and Amazon. And by combining technical expertise with a library of content and experience on the production side, this new company would be the biggest in the streaming world. So in this theoretical huge conglomerate company, there'd be a lot of information in there as they combine their resources, combine their systems, and that's information that they probably wouldn't want out. They'd probably want to protect that information. If only there was a service that keep that information secure and encrypted and keep it where it needs to be and out of the hands where it doesn't. I guess they could probably use something like NordLocker for Business. You probably know NordLocker protects data from cyber criminal surveillance and malware. It securely backs up all of your files. You can access them via private vault in any of their web or desktop or mobile apps. It's end-to-end encrypted at all time. It gives you full control of your data, access it wherever you want. avoiding things that would suck for a company like this, like leaks or stolen files. And with NordLocker for Business, you got the ability to manage members in the organization, so you can invite, or someone does something bad, you can suspend them. You can set up different roles. You can check and manage your license and access business settings, control file sharings outside your organization. And perhaps most importantly, we could avoid the Toy Story 2 debacle, and you could recover your information. If you don't know, that movie got deleted and some lady who just got laid off was able to save it because she had it back up at home. That all would have been avoided if they'd had NordLocker for Business. And if it's good enough to secure a multi-trillion-dollar organization like Apple, you know it's good and safe for your business. If you want to check it out, go to nordlocker.com/creators. Use the code Rettinger and you'll get 3 free months. So give it a shot, at least for those 3 months. You know your information is going to be crazy secure. Everything else you want to know, they'll be in the description down below. So Disney has the content. Apple has distribution. They have millions of phones, millions of iPads. You don't have to be in front of a TV to watch content from this new company. It theoretically can make sense, but could it make financial sense? This is where I got probably deeper in the weeds than I needed to. But I'm gonna share it. Apple ended its last quarter with 935 million paid subscriptions across all of its services, which includes Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, Apple Arcade, Apple News Plus, Apple Fitness Plus, and iCloud Plus. It bundles all those services into Apple One. Acquiring Disney would boost that ecosystem by adding Disney's 235 million streaming subscribers, 162 million on Disney Plus, 25 million on ESPN Plus, which I thought would be way bigger, and 48 million on Hulu to Apple TV Plus. And also, Apple Music would gain a ton of new songs. Apple News Plus could be tightly integrated into ABC News, and Apple Arcade could potentially get maybe things you've heard of, like Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars games would be first-party IP. That merger might solve Disney's biggest problem: the widening losses in its direct-to-consumer streaming division. As big as Disney Plus has been, it is hemorrhaging money. And merging its streaming ecosystem with Apple will reduce its own content production infrastructure, and marketing costs go along with it, because that is expensive. For example, last quarter, Apple generated 18% of its revenue from its service agreement, which houses its subscriptions, its App Store sales, and other services, but it still generated 56% of revenue from the iPhone, which will obviously in the future face diminishing returns with longer upgrade cycles and people not using phones as often or moving to other devices like their own headset. That percentage would drop to 47% if combined Apple and Disney's latest quarterly numbers came together. So there was a lot to unpack there. But as for the bundling opportunities, and this is where I got even more in the weeds, Apple could sell Disney-themed products, promote its products in Disney's movies, TV shows, and theme parks, even provide its Apple One subscriptions with special discounts for Disney theme parks and resorts. It would also gain access to Disney's just torrential goldmine of customer data, which you know would make Google extremely jealous. And that could help guide Apple's development of future hardware and software and subscription products. They would know all about you, probably to a very scary level. The flip side is Apple's a tech company. How could they merge with essentially a company that's a lot of first-party IP? And that could be a problem. Like Disney has successfully conglomerated a lot of companies in the past, and they've all been sort of within the entertainment industry, right? They bought LucasArts, they bought Marvel, and others. But here, they're merging with essentially a hardware company. And that's sort of tough to say how that would work with hardware and entertainment. It's trickier than sort of past mergers to try to make something like that work. Now, I do think it is a very forward-looking thing for Apple to consider. Now, I don't think this is ever going to happen at all. But the big point I mentioned throughout this video is reliance on iPhone sales for Apple's business. And when things are good, they are really good. And I'm going to avoid making a sort of a BlackBerry analogy, and how things were great for BlackBerry until people found something different that wasn't a BlackBerry. I think people are still going to buy iPhones for many, many, many more years. But perhaps they start buying them less frequently. Maybe they, instead of buying one every 2 years, they buy them every 3 years. That hurts Apple's bottom line. Or maybe there's less reason to get phones with new headsets coming on the market. Or maybe Google or Samsung does something incredible that cuts into iPhone sales. That would severely hurt Apple's business. And their new sort of Apple TV business has incredible content, presumably is not a profitable venture for them on its own. By committing essentially all of their cash reserves, they are positioning themselves kind of for the future and transitioning themselves to be a larger entertainment company than just a hardware company. I think that's where they want to be. So I wouldn't look at Apple to buy Disney at all, but I would look for Apple to make smaller Disney-like acquisitions. So companies that have IP that they could make their own Apple movies out of, they can make their own Apple TV shows out of, that presumably will help sort of build the ecosystem. But for now, it was fun to imagine Captain America calling Black Widow on his iPhone, or putting on his Vision Plus headset and seeing what's happening, with Ultron somewhere in the world. It was just a fun exercise to go through it. Instead of doing all this in my head and then telling everybody I could think of, here's what would happen, I just wanted to share with you guys. If you like these weird businessy kind of videos, let me know. Give the video a thumbs up, because I got way more of these rumbling around in my head. But it was a fun exercise to go through and think. I don't think it'll ever happen, but if it does, you heard it here first. Before we wrap this up, if you do want to check out NordLocker for Business, just go to nordlocker.com/creators, use code Rettinger, and you get 3 free months.